The galaxy was old, full of countless stars and civilizations that had risen, fallen, and risen again. Across its shining expanse, wars had burned like wildfires and treaties had been signed in desperate whispers. The Galactic Council stood as the great balancing power, an assembly of hundreds of species that tried, though often failed, to keep peace among the stars. So when news spread that a new warlord had risen in the distant sectors, the Council prepared for another long campaign. This warlord, known only as Karzul, had gathered fleets from broken empires and mercenary clans, forging them into an iron fist that now crushed one system after another. Dozens of worlds had already fallen. Refugees poured into neutral space. The Council feared that if this warlord was not stopped quickly, he would carve out an empire that no one could challenge. In response, the Council called upon all major powers to send fleets. Mighty armadas assembled, their ships darkening the skies of staging worlds. From the insectoid fleets of the Therkai to the crystalline warships of the Vayari, the galaxy was gathering its greatest warriors, and then there was Earth. Humanity had only been part of the galactic community for a short time. Their homeworld was not ancient like others. Their colonies were few, and their technology was, by most standards, still young. While the great empires boasted fleets of thousands, Earth's navy was a humble one. So when the Council waited for humanity's contribution, they expected at least a respectable squadron if not a full fleet. Instead, humanity sent one ship. Just one, the Resolute. The announcement spread across the galaxy like fire. In the great council chambers, alien representatives whispered and laughed behind their translated voices. One ship? They asked. Is this a joke? Do the humans not understand the seriousness of the threat? The Therkai delegate, whose people had fought in wars for millennia, clicked his mandibles in amusement. Perhaps they mean to offer the ship as a symbolic gesture, a banner, not a blade. The crystalline Vayari delegate flickered with mocking light. Or perhaps they have misunderstood the request entirely. Their species is young. They may not grasp the scale of such a war. Yet there were others who frowned in silence. Some remembered fragments of history, stories of how humans had fought on their homeworld long before joining the stars, wars that had shaped their entire civilization. Still, those were only stories, and stories were easy to dismiss. For most of the galaxy, the decision was nothing but proof of humanity's arrogance or foolishness. On Earth, in a quiet military command center buried beneath the surface, Captain Elena Vera stood before the viewport of the Resolute. The ship was not large by galactic standards, but it was sleek, built with human precision and armed with systems no one outside Earth truly understood. Its hull gleamed a dull gray marked with the flag of Earth and the motto of its people, "Through fire, we endure." Her crew bustled around her, men and women chosen from across human colonies. Some were veterans of border skirmishes. Others were engineers, scientists, and tacticians who had worked on secret projects for years. Each of them had been told the same thing before they signed on. The mission was dangerous, the odds uncertain, and the eyes of the galaxy would be upon them. Still, they had all agreed. "Message from the Council again," said Lieutenant Kor, a tall officer with tired eyes. "They're asking if reinforcements are following us. They don't seem convinced it's only us." Elena smiled faintly. "Let them wonder." Kor hesitated. "Do you think it's wise to keep them in the dark?" "Wise?" Elena asked, turning to face him. "Perhaps not, but necessary. If they knew what we carried, they would panic. Or worse, they'd try to take it from us." Kor nodded slowly. He knew what she meant. Hidden deep in the Resolute systems were weapons designed in silence, far from the eyes of the Council. Humanity had studied galactic technology, copied what they could, and then asked themselves a simple question. How can we make it deadlier? Centuries of human history, of wars fought with desperation, of innovation born from survival, had guided the answers. Now those answers rested in the Resolute. Beyond Earth's borders, the warlord Karzul gathered his forces. His fleet stretched across the void, made of ships stolen, conquered, or built from scavenged worlds. He was a towering figure, scaled and scarred, with a voice that could silence even his fiercest generals. His ambition was simple: domination. Reports of humanity's single ship reached him as well. He laughed when he heard them. "The humans insult us," he growled. "One ship? They dare mock the fire of my fleet with such weakness? Then we will make an example of them. Their lone vessel will be the first to burn. The order was given. When the time came, the Resolute would face the fury of an entire armada. Meanwhile, in the council chambers, debate raged. Some demanded that humanity be ordered to send more ships, that their lone effort was an insult to the council's unity. Others argued that perhaps humanity was simply too small a power to do more. Still others whispered that maybe, just maybe, the humans had a plan, but no one truly believed that one ship could make a difference. Not yet. Aboard the Resolute, Captain Elena walked the silent corridors before launch. She paused to look at the faces of her crew, faces lit by determination, not fear. Each of them knew what the galaxy thought of them. Each of them had heard the laughter, the whispers, the mockery, and each of them carried the same answer in their hearts: let them laugh. The truth will come when the guns speak. Elena placed her hand on the cold metal of the bridge door. One ship, she whispered to herself. One chance. That's all we need. And as the Resolute lifted from its dock and began its journey into the stars, the galaxy continued to wonder, continued to doubt, and continued to whisper. No one knew yet, but soon they would. The galaxy's great fleets gathered in silence near the border of Warlord Karzul's territory. Thousands of ships drifted in formation, their hulls glowing beneath alien suns. Engines hummed, weapons charged, and the void seemed heavy with the weight of expectation. Yet in the midst of these vast armadas, one ship stood apart. Small, gray, and alone, the Resolute alien commanders could not help but stare. Their vessels were giants covered with layers of shields and bristling with weapons. Against them, the human ship looked fragile, like a child standing among warriors. On the flagship of the Thurkai, Admiral Zrek clacked his mandibles and let out a hiss of amusement. One ship, he muttered to his officers. Do the humans not know this warlord has crushed entire fleets? This is foolishness. On the crystalline vessel of the Vayari, Admiral Kalith shimmered with mocking light. Humans, he said to his council. They are strange creatures, always loud with words, yet so small indeed. I expect their ship will be the first destroyed. We will mourn politely, of course. Even among the neutral observers of the council, the tone was the same: pity, disbelief, or outright ridicule. But inside the Resolute, the atmosphere was different. Captain Elena Vera stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. Around her, dozens of alien fleets shifted like pieces on a great board, forming battle lines against the warlord's advancing forces. The Resolute was placed on the edge of the formation, almost like an afterthought. Look at that, Lieutenant Kor said, shaking his head as he studied the positioning. They've put us on the flank near the scout ships, as if we're decoration, not part of the fight. They don't understand us yet, Elena replied calmly. That's fine. When the time comes, they will. Ensign Darius, the youngest member of the crew, frowned at the holographic projection. Captain, if they don't believe in us, won't they leave us behind? Or worse, treat us like expendable pieces? Elena's lips curved into the faintest smile. Let them think what they want. It will give us the element of surprise. Deep within the ship, engineers worked in silence. Hidden compartments were checked. Secret weapon systems powered up for the first time outside of simulations. Rail drivers gleamed as magnetic coils hummed softly. Missile silos were armed with payloads the galaxy had never seen. Dr. Senna, the ship's chief scientist, walked among the teams, her voice calm and steady. Check power stability again. No fluctuations. The rail cannons must fire clean on the first shot. One of the engineers, sweating beneath his helmet, asked, Do you think the aliens will understand what we carry, Doctor? She shook her head. No. They've grown too used to their own methods. They build shields thicker and thicker, thinking themselves invincible. But history shows something simple. No shield lasts forever. You just have to hit it hard enough. On the Warlord's flagship, the situation was unfolding differently. Karzul's fleet stretched across the stars, a wave of blackened steel and firepower. Thousands of raiders, destroyers, and captured ships formed a wall of death. His lieutenants brought him reports from the Council fleet's numbers, formations, strengths, and weaknesses. One report made him laugh, a deep rumble that shook the chamber. The humans, he growled. They come with one ship. His generals chuckled in unison. Cowards, said one. Or fools, said another. Karzul's burning eyes narrowed. Not cowards. Fools, yes. They insult us with their weakness. When battle begins, strike them first. Let their ashes be the message to all who dare oppose me. The order was written into his plan. Humanity's single ship was not only underestimated, it was marked for destruction. Back in the Council's war camp, the arguments continued. Delegates filled the chambers debating the humans' strange choice. The Vayari representative spoke with cold amusement. We are about to fight one of the greatest threats the galaxy has seen in centuries, and humanity sends a single warship. It is an insult to the unity we require. The Therkai delegate snapped his mandibles. Then demand they send more. Demand they follow the Council's call as all others have. Yet the human ambassador remained calm. He stood tall, his uniform plain compared to the ornate garments of alien leaders. His voice was steady, his words simple. Earth has sent what is needed. No more, no less. The chamber filled with laughter, disbelief, and outrage. But the ambassador did not explain further. He bowed once, left the hall, and returned to his quiet corner of the camp. His silence only deepened the mystery. As days passed, alien officers grew restless. Scouts reported the warlord's fleet moving closer. Soon the battle would begin. Training drills were run, strategies discussed, and weapons tested. But always the eyes of other species turned toward the Resolute. Pilots of the Therkai joked about how long it would last. Perhaps 1 minute, they laughed. Perhaps 2, if they are lucky. Vayari officers placed bets on whether the human captain would retreat before the first shot was fired. Even some neutral observers whispered, "They are brave, yes. But bravery does not win wars." Inside the Resolute, however, the crew prepared with quiet confidence. Lieutenant Corps studied the tactical maps late into the night, analyzing every possible movement of the enemy fleet. Ensign Darius drilled with the weapons teams, his youthful doubts now replaced by determination. Dr. Senna refined the firing calculations for the rail cannons, ensuring every shot would land with terrifying accuracy. Captain Elena walked the halls speaking to her people. She reminded them of Earth's history, the long centuries of conflict, the struggles for survival, the lessons written in blood and perseverance. Other species cannot imagine what it means to be human, she told them. They do not understand the weight of our history. But that is our strength. We carry not only weapons but memory, and memory can be sharper than any blade. The day before the battle, the fleets moved into final formation. The void seemed to grow still, as if holding its breath. On the Resolute's bridge, the crew stared at the stars ahead, knowing that soon those stars would be filled with fire. "Do you think they'll finally respect us after this?" Ensign Darius asked quietly. Elena did not answer immediately. She looked at the tactical display, at the thousands of enemy ships approaching, at the countless lives about to clash in the void. Finally, she said, "Respect is earned, not given. Tomorrow we will show them who we are." And as the crew returned to their duties, each heart carried the same thought. Humanity was underestimated, dismissed, and mocked. But soon the galaxy would learn the truth. The Resolute was not just a ship. It was a message, and that message would be written in fire. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, a silent canvas for the violence about to erupt. Thousands of ships waited in the darkness, each a symbol of power and ambition. The fleets of the Council and its allies had formed a great wall, a barrier against the rising tide of Karzul's forces. Yet among these immense vessels, the Resolute drifted alone, small, modest, and entirely underestimated. Captain Elena Vera stood on the bridge, calm but alert. Her eyes scanned the holographic projection of the battlefield, noting every movement, every formation. Her crew moved with quiet efficiency, aware that this moment could define the place of humanity in the galaxy forever. "Enemy scouts approaching," Lieutenant Corps reported. His fingers danced across the controls, highlighting a series of small but fast vessels moving toward the edge of the formation. Elena nodded. "Prepare point defense turrets. Let them get closer. We will not fire unless necessary. Let them underestimate us again." The crew worked swiftly. Missiles were loaded, rail cannons calibrated, and shields strengthened. Every system of the Resolute hummed with latent power. This small ship carried more firepower than the enemy could imagine. And soon that power would be revealed. Karzul watched from his flagship, a giant vessel of black steel adorned with the banners of conquered worlds. His eyes, fierce and glowing, swept across the formation of the Council fleets. "There," he said, pointing at a tiny dot, "the humans. One ship alone, take it first. Make it burn before the others see the power we wield. His lieutenants nodded eagerly, eager to strike down the insignificant human vessel and demonstrate his might. The order spread through the fleet like wildfire. Fighters and cruisers changed course, advancing toward the Resolute with deadly intent. Karzul's confidence was absolute. In his mind, the humans would be the first to fall. Inside the Resolute, the crew was ready. "Captain," Ensign Darius said, his voice steady now. No trace of the doubt that had haunted him days before. "They're coming in fast. Do we engage?" Elena's hands rested lightly on the console. "Not yet," she said. "Let them think we are weak. Let them come closer. Then we show them the truth." The humans had spent years studying alien tactics, predicting movements, and developing countermeasures. Every weapon, every system, every maneuver had been designed for this moment. And while the enemy thought they were facing one small ship, they were about to face a force the galaxy had never seen. The first wave of Karzul's fighters swooped in. They were fast, sleek, and armed with laser cannons designed to shred smaller vessels. "Target the lead fighters," Elena ordered. "Point defense only. Let them think they can take us down." The Resolute's turrets spun to life. Pulses of energy shot out, precise and deadly. The first fighter exploded before it reached the ship. A second followed, and then a third. The humans watched with quiet satisfaction. This was only the beginning. Karzul's war council erupted in confusion. "Impossible!" one lieutenant shouted. "Our fighters are the fastest in the galaxy. They should have reached the humans by now." Karzul slammed a clawed hand against the console. "Keep attacking! Use everything we have." More ships charged forward. Cruisers, destroyers, even heavily armed dreadnoughts. Each was confident that a single shot would cripple the human vessel. But the Resolute had secrets the aliens did not know. Hidden rail cannons fired silently at first. Magnetic projectiles slicing through the void with unbelievable speed. A cruiser exploded into shards of metal, sending sparks cascading into space. Another vessel lost all power after a single precise strike. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as the small human ship took down enemy vessels with terrifying efficiency. On the bridge, Lieutenant Kor's fingers flew across the controls. "They're focusing on us now. Shields holding at 95%. Weapons ready." Elena did not speak. She observed, calculated, and waited. Every movement of the enemy fleet was predictable, mapped into countless scenarios she had prepared for. The Resolute would strike again, and when it did, the consequences would be catastrophic. "Captain," Darius said quietly, "they're sending in the dreadnoughts. Big guns this time." Elena's eyes narrowed. "Let them come. We've prepared for this." The dreadnoughts were enormous, each ship larger than entire human cities, bristling with cannons, missiles, and energy shields. Their approach made the stars themselves seem to tremble, but the humans were ready. The rail cannons fired in perfect synchronization, slicing through shielded hulls. Missile pods launched in precise arcs, each warhead hitting its target before the enemy could respond. The first dreadnought exploded in a silent fireball, sending fragments into space. The second staggered, losing propulsion as the Resolute's systems targeted critical engines. The third was crippled before it could even fire its main guns. Even the veteran alien commanders could not believe what they were seeing. Their fastest, most advanced ships were falling to a single human vessel. On Karzul's flagship, the warlord's rage boiled. "Stop them," he roared. "Crush that ship! Leave nothing alive!" But it was too late. The humans had already turned the tide of the battle. The fleets that had mocked them began to hesitate, unsure how to respond. Even some council ships, long skeptical of humanity, watched in awe as the Resolute dismantled the enemy before them. "Captain," Lieutenant Kor said, almost breathless, "they're trying to regroup." Elena shook her head. "We don't give them that chance. Target their command ships. Take out their leadership." Missiles streaked through space with deadly precision, hitting command vessels and sending communications networks offline. Chaos erupted among Karzul's forces. Without orders, the alien ships faltered, collided, and became easy targets. In the middle of the battle, Ensign Darius looked at the viewport and whispered, "We're actually doing it. We're holding them back, and more." Elena placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Remember this moment," she said. "The galaxy doubts us now. Tomorrow they will remember us. The Resolute moved like a predator in space, striking, evading, and calculating. Every maneuver was executed flawlessly. Every shot counted. And every enemy vessel that had laughed at humanity now lay in ruins. Hours passed in the void. Explosions lit up the darkness, sending echoes of light across the battlefield. The once mighty fleet of Karzul had suffered devastating losses. His own flagship was damaged, and his lieutenants were unable to restore order. Yet the humans were not finished. They pressed forward, each strike precise, each movement calculated to maximize damage and minimize risk. The Resolute remained untouched, shields strong, weapons ready, and crew unshaken. Finally, Elena looked at the tactical display. The enemy fleet was in disarray. "Prepare the final strike," she ordered. "We end this engagement now." The human crew worked in perfect harmony. Rail cannons fired in unison, missiles arced like falling stars, and energy pulses tore through the enemy's remaining ships. One by one, dreadnoughts exploded, cruisers were disabled, and fighters scattered in panic. Karzul watched in disbelief as his empire collapsed around him. His orders were ignored, his ships destroyed, and his forces broken. The humans had done what no one thought possible. They had turned a hopeless situation into a victory. And when the Resolute finally pulled back, it was still intact. Not a single crew member lost. Not a single critical system damaged beyond repair. The galaxy had watched. The galaxy had doubted. But the first strike had spoken clearly. Humanity was not to be underestimated. Back aboard the Resolute, the crew exhaled. Relief mixed with adrenaline. Victory, though hard-earned, was theirs for the moment. "Captain," Lieutenant Kor said, "we've done the impossible. I don't know what the others will say when they see the results." Elena smiled faintly. "Let them see for themselves. Let them realize that humans do not fight like anyone else. We fight with our minds, our courage, and our history. We fight like we will survive because we must." And as the stars glimmered silently around them, one thing was certain. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. The Resolute had fired the first strike, and with it humanity had announced its arrival. The void of space was alive with movement. Shattered ships drifted silently like wreckage in a sea of stars, a testament to the ferocity of the first strike. Karzul's fleet, once a wall of iron and fire, now staggered in confusion. Smoke and debris streaked across the darkness, evidence of a single human ship's unimaginable power. On the Resolute, Captain Elena Vera stood on the bridge, her calm presence steadying the crew. Her fingers hovered above the controls, watching the enemy fleet try to regroup. Their panic was evident even in the cold calculations of the holographic display. "They're forming a new line," Lieutenant Kor said, pointing to the cluster of enemy vessels. "But they're slower this time. Our tactics have thrown them off balance." Elena nodded. "Good, that's exactly what we want. Now we push forward. Not recklessly, but decisively." The crew understood. Each member moved with precision, executing drills practiced countless times. Engineers monitored the energy flow, ensuring weapons were primed. Gunners adjusted firing solutions ready for the next volley. Every person knew their role and every action mattered. Far away, Karzul's flagship reeled from the previous defeat. The warlord's massive claws gripped the edge of his console as he roared in anger. "How can this be?" he bellowed. "One ship, one human ship, has destroyed so much." His generals tried to rally the fleet, but fear had begun to seep into even their hearts. Ships collided, formations broke, and communication lines faltered. The warlord's wrath was enormous, but it could not restore the order that had been shattered. A young lieutenant approached cautiously. "My lordum, they are fast and clever. They are not following the rules of engagement as expected. It is unlike anything we've ever faced." Karzul's eyes blazed. "Then we must adapt. Send in the heavy battalions. Crush that ship before it can do more damage." But the humans had anticipated this. The Resolute glided through space like a shadow, evading heavy fire while striking with precision. Elena had studied the enemy's patterns and predicted how they would respond. Every strike was designed not just to destroy but to destabilize the entire fleet. "Captain," Ensign Darius said, his voice tight with excitement, "the enemy command ships are exposed. If we hit them, their coordination will collapse completely." Elena's eyes narrowed at the display. "Then we hit them. Prepare the rail cannons for a synchronized strike. Engineers ensure maximum power to the forward arrays." The crew moved like a single organism. Magnetic projectiles hummed with lethal energy. Missiles streaked across the darkness with blazing speed, and energy pulses flared, tearing through shields. One by one, the enemy command vessels were disabled or destroyed. Confusion spread through Karzul's fleet like wildfire. Without their leaders, smaller ships faltered. Orders were miscommunicated or ignored. Panic began to take root. On board the Resolute, the crew felt the shift in momentum. "Captain," Lieutenant Core said, watching the displays. "They're trying to retreat, but they can't. Their formation is broken." Elena's lips pressed into a thin line. "Do not let them recover. Press the advantage, but stay controlled. Precision is more powerful than rage." The crew worked tirelessly, executing every maneuver and strike with skill. Fighters were neutralized, cruisers incapacitated, and dreadnoughts disabled. Slowly, the remaining elements of the enemy fleet began to retreat, trying desperately to escape the relentless human assault. Yet some ships pressed forward, determined to protect their warlord. Elena knew that the real challenge was yet to come. Karzul himself would not retreat. The human crew needed one final strategy, a decisive move to ensure victory. Meanwhile, Karzul's flagship prepared for a counterattack. The warlord's fury had grown into something almost unstoppable. He directed his remaining forces toward the Resolute, unleashing every available weapon. Plasma beams sliced through space, missile volleys arced with deadly precision, and energy shields flared with bright light as the humans' defenses absorbed the attacks. "Brace for impact," one officer warned. Elena's eyes scanned the displays, shields holding steady. "Divert additional power to engines. We will maneuver through this." The Resolute moved like water around rocks, weaving through deadly fire, never wasting a single movement. Enemy fire missed, struck each other, or was neutralized by defensive systems. Humanity's ship was small, agile, and precise. Everything. Karzul's massive fleet was not. The turning point came when Elena initiated the Resolute's secret maneuver, the Phantom Sweep. A coordinated assault using the ship's hidden rail cannons and missile arrays, combined with a rapid change in position that made targeting almost impossible for the enemy. "Execute the sweep," Elena commanded. Engines roared as the Resolute shifted trajectory. Rail cannons fired simultaneously from multiple hidden angles. Missiles flared in brilliant arcs, targeting enemy power systems. A chain reaction began, crippling several dreadnoughts and command vessels. In the span of minutes, what had seemed like an overwhelming fleet now struggled to survive. Chaos reigned, and even the bravest alien pilots were forced to retreat or surrender. On the bridge of Karzul's flagship, the warlord's rage reached its peak. His massive hand slammed the console. "Impossible," he shouted. "How can one ship, one human ship, cause this much destruction?" A lieutenant dared to speak. "My lord, perhaps they are superior." Karzul's eyes burned with fury. "Superior?" He spat the word. "No! It is trickery, deception. Find their weakness and strike." But even as he issued the order, the humans had anticipated it. The Resolute remained untouchable, a ghost weaving through destruction and chaos, striking with unerring precision. The galaxy beyond the battlefield watched in awe. Word spread quickly through communication networks. One human ship has shattered the core of Karzul's fleet. Ships from allied species previously skeptical of humanity began to rally. Observers who had mocked the humans now whispered words of respect. "By the stars, they are not like us," said one Vayari officer, her crystalline form flickering with astonishment. "They think differently. They fight differently. They are remarkable." Even some council delegates who had doubted humanity's contribution now reconsidered. The Resolute had done what no other fleet had done. It had changed the battle's outcome single-handedly. Inside the Resolute, the crew understood the significance, but they did not celebrate yet. There was still danger. Karzul remained alive, and some ships were still capable of attack. They had achieved a critical turning point, but victory was not yet absolute. Elena walked through the bridge, her gaze steady on each officer. "We've proven that we can survive. We've shown the galaxy that humans are not to be underestimated, but the fight is not over. Stay sharp. Every ship, every system matters," Lieutenant Core nodded. "Understood, Captain. They won't expect the next move." Darius, standing at the weapons console, allowed himself a small smile. "We're making history," he said softly. Elena's eyes softened slightly. "Yes, but history is written not by those who celebrate, but by those who endure. And we must endure." As the remnants of Karzul's fleet retreated into the darkness, the human ship advanced cautiously, scanning the void for threats. Every destroyed vessel, every shattered command ship, had a lesson embedded within it, a demonstration of human strategy. "Ingenuity and courage, Captain," Lieutenant Kor said. Studying the displays, "the enemy is regrouping far ahead. They'll try again, but their confidence is gone. They know now they underestimated us." Elena nodded. "Let them learn. The galaxy is watching and the lesson will spread. Humanity is not weak. Humanity is not expendable. Humanity endures, adapts, and fights." The Resolute moved forward, battered but unbroken. In that moment, the galaxy saw the truth. One human ship could challenge fleets many times its size. One human crew could change the course of battle. One human captain could turn despair into victory. And Karzul, the mighty warlord, realized too late that underestimating humanity was the gravest mistake of his life. The turning point had been reached. Humanity had shown its strength, and the galaxy would never forget the name of the ship that roared through the void. The Resolute. The void of space was quiet now, but it was a quiet that carried the weight of history. Wreckage drifted among the stars, shattered ships of Karzul's once mighty fleet glinting like broken jewels. The silence was different from the calm before battle. It was a silence filled with awe, respect, and a lesson the galaxy would not forget. Aboard the Resolute, Captain Elena Vera stood on the bridge, her eyes scanning the remains of the battlefield. The crew moved quietly around her, checking systems, attending minor repairs, and observing the aftermath. There was no celebration yet. Victory was earned, but the responsibility remained. Lieutenant Kor approached Elena, his expression a mixture of exhaustion and pride. "Captain, we did it. The fleet is broken. Karzul's forces are scattered. The battle. It's over." Elena nodded slowly. "Yes, but this is more than a battle won. This is a lesson. The galaxy must learn something important about humanity." In the distance, what remained of Karzul's flagship struggled to limp away. Its massive engines were crippled, its hull scarred and smoking. The warlord himself had barely escaped with a few loyal ships, his confidence shattered. He had believed his power absolute, that the humans would crumble under the weight of his fleet. But humans, he realized too late, were not predictable. They did not follow the rules of others' expectations. They adapted, they endured, and they struck with intelligence and precision. "They are different," one lieutenant admitted, his voice trembling. "Stronger, smarter, harder to defeat than anything we've faced." Karzul's roar of frustration echoed across his damaged flagship. "This cannot be. How can one ship, one small human ship, destroy so much?" The answer was simple. Humanity was not just a species. It was an idea. Resilience, ingenuity, courage. And the Resolute was the embodiment of that idea. Back aboard the Resolute, the crew began communicating with allied fleets. Reports of the battle spread quickly. The other species that had once doubted humanity now relayed their astonishment. Council ships, insectoid fleets, crystalline warships, and even neutral observers sent messages. Humans had not only survived, they had changed the course of the engagement. In the Vayari Council chambers, officers watched the reports in disbelief. "It is incredible," one said. "We underestimated them. One human ship, and they turned the tide." A Therkai commander tapped the console. "They fight differently. Their minds, their tactics. We cannot predict them. We assumed they were weak, but they are exceptional." The whispers of doubt, once mocking, had turned into words of respect and cautious fear. On the Resolute, Captain Elena gathered her officers. The bridge was filled with the hum of machines and the quiet focus of her crew. "Look at what we've accomplished," she said softly. "Not through size, not through numbers, but through skill, courage, and strategy. We have proven that humans are not to be dismissed. That one ship, one crew can make a difference. That's the message the galaxy must remember." Lieutenant Kor spoke quietly. "The others, will they understand? The Council? The Empires?" Elena smiled faintly. "They will, they must. From this day forward, humanity will not be ignored. Not because we demand it, but because we earned it." Ensign Darius looked out the viewport at the distant stars. "I never imagined it could be like this. That one small ship could do so much." Elena placed a hand on his shoulder. "Remember this. You are part of something greater than a single mission. You are part of history." Humanity has many ships, many crews, but today, we showed the galaxy what one determined crew can do. That is the essence of who we are. Meanwhile, Karzul's forces had begun to retreat, regrouping in distant sectors. The warlord's pride was shattered and his remaining fleets were in disarray. The lesson he would carry was harsh but clear. Never underestimate humans. Across the galaxy, word of the battle spread. Scholars, strategists, and leaders analyzed the encounter. They studied the tactics of the Resolute, the decisions of Captain Elena, and the execution of the human crew. Many were shocked by the simplicity and brilliance of the strategies, using intelligence, adaptation, and resourcefulness rather than brute force. One Vayari admiral admitted openly, "They are not only strong, they are clever. Every move they made exploited our weaknesses. They fight with thought, not just firepower. That is the difference." The council convened a special session to discuss the events. Delegates who had once doubted humanity now spoke with reverence. The human ambassador remained calm, his presence a quiet reminder of Earth's resilience. "They sent one ship," said a Therkai delegate. "We laughed. We assumed arrogance. But now we know. They sent exactly what was needed. One was enough." The ambassador simply nodded. No words could add to the lesson already learned. On the Resolute, repairs were completed quickly. Damage had been minimal, thanks to careful maneuvering and shields that had absorbed the worst of the attacks. The crew worked efficiently, each member proud of their contribution. "Captain," Lieutenant Kor said, checking the final systems, "everything is ready. We are fully operational." Elena nodded. "Good, but we remain vigilant. Karzul will not forget. Others may rise to challenge us, inspired by his failures. We must be ready for whatever comes next." Darius glanced around at his fellow crew members. "It feels incredible. We faced the impossible and survived. More than that, we won." Elena's eyes softened with pride. "Yes, but remember, the victory is not ours alone. It belongs to humanity. Every human who struggled, endured, and fought to survive, their spirit is here. That is why we won. That is why the galaxy must remember our name." The crew gathered on the bridge to watch the stars. Silence hung in the air, heavy with reflection and awe. They had faced overwhelming odds and emerged victorious. Yet victory did not breed arrogance, it inspired responsibility. Captain Elena spoke quietly, almost to herself, but loud enough for her crew to hear. "One ship, one crew, and the galaxy learned a lesson. It is not power alone that wins battles. It is courage, it is ingenuity, and it is determination. Humanity survives because we refuse to be ignored. We endure because we must. And when the time comes, we fight. Always we fight." Her words echoed through the bridge, a quiet mantra for all who listened. The crew nodded in understanding. They had witnessed the truth. Humans were not only capable, they were extraordinary. As they returned to Allied space, the galaxy's perception of humanity had changed forever. Once doubted, once laughed at, humans were now respected, feared, and admired. Their ingenuity, bravery, and determination had been displayed for all to see. Messages arrived from distant fleets. "Your tactics were remarkable. We underestimated you. Forgive us. Teach us how humans fight." Elena and her crew exchanged quiet smiles. They did not seek praise. They had acted out of necessity, strategy, and pride in their people. But the acknowledgement of the galaxy was a welcome reminder. Humans had made their mark. In the aftermath, the Council recognized humanity's contribution formally. Though only one ship had been sent, it had shifted the tide of conflict. Plans were made to study human strategy, to learn from the unexpected tactics and adaptive thinking displayed by Captain Elena and the crew. Even Karzul, in exile and planning his next moves, carried the lesson deeply burned into his mind. Never underestimate humans. Back on the Resolute, the crew finally allowed themselves a moment to relax. Lights flickered gently, engines hummed steadily, and the stars stretched peacefully outside. Humanity's ship had survived, humanity's people had endured, and humanity's place in the galaxy had been forever strengthened. Elena stood at the viewport, gazing at the stars, her voice barely above a whisper. "One ship, one crew, one lesson. The galaxy will never forget it, and neither will we." Lieutenant Kor, Ensign Darius, and the rest of the crew nodded. They had been part of history. They had faced impossible odds. They had emerged victorious. and the galaxy had learned its first lesson. Humanity was not to be ignored. Through courage, strategy, and unyielding will, the Resolute had written a new chapter in galactic history. The lesson of fire had been delivered, and it would echo across the stars for generations to come.